Hi everyone, thanks a million for coming today on Sunday. I hope you're all enjoying the festival. I have yet to have a look around, so if anyone has anything they'd recommend, please let me know. My name's Denise Mcdonough. I'll just tell you a little bit about myself. I am a part of a company called CultureWorks, and we are a team of 5. We work across a number of areas. We create and produce projects. I'll show you our 3 most recent projects. We project manage and coordinate projects in partnership with local authorities and the Arts Council and arts organisations. And we also do a lot of strategic thinking and consultancy. So currently at the minute I'm the digital arts advisor for the Arts Council. So that's kind of one of the roles that we do. And I'll just talk you through 1 or 2 of our projects. So I don't know if you've seen the Brightening Air programme that was there in June. So this is one of our projects that we did. It's a large-scale light installation. We basically worked with 2 artists, Mick Murray and Mark Cregan, and Matthew, and they are light sculptors. And we took a boat and sailed it down the Shannon over 10 nights. And we commissioned a piece of music from David Kitt, and basically the performance was 7 minutes, and it would happen at kind of different intervals going down the Shannon. So that was a huge project that we did. And most recently, we did this project, Eyes on the Horizon. It's only finished last weekend. It was in Galway. It was the Local Life Performance Grant, and we worked with over 160 artists over 3 weekends. So there was a series of happenings and music performances throughout the city. You can see more information on our website, but it was great to kind of get artists back in. Everything was outdoors, and it was great to have artists performing again. So then I'm just going to talk to you a bit about this. This is will lead into the conversation that we're going to have on NFT. We were commissioned earlier on in the year to produce a digital toolbox for the Arts Council. So this is kind of like a planning tool for artists and organisations. The link is there if you want to have a look at it in your own time, but it's like a step-by-step. It's a PDF basically, and it's a step-by-step view as an artist or an organisation of the whys and hows of if you want to create work digitally or disseminate work online. And it's really important for if you're a traditional artist or whatever art form you use to make your work, that you look at yourself, your own practice, to see if you actually need to make your work digital, or if you want to explore digital artwork. And Elle will talk more as a practicing digital artist about that and the difference between, showing, disseminating your work digitally online to show it to an audience over making a digital artwork. So it's important to you as an artist to decide if that's right for your practice, because there's no onus from the Arts Council for you to do that for funding. You do not have to make your work digital. I know there's with COVID and everything, everybody put their work up digitally, but there is you don't need to do that. You need to look at your practice and see if it's right for you. That's really important for me to emphasise. But the toolbox is a starting point for you to look at that, to really question yourself of why or if you need to do that. But also then it looks at resources we worked with all the resource organisations in Ireland, and they have loads of different resources there. We've tried to compile them. Parallel to that, we ran The Future is Bright, a webinar series, and this webinar series was looking at all of the what we had been through over the last 2 years nearly, and kind of where we're going now, what's happening in Ireland digitally, what type of approaches organisations are taking, what have we learned from everything that we've gone through, and where we're going. And one of the webinars, 2 of the webinars focused significantly on NFT, non-fungible tokens, which I'll explain a bit more. And there's 2, if you go on the link as well, we had John Gerard speaking about it, and also the founder of NFT, which we were delighted to have, Kevin McCoy and his wife Jennifer. He is the founder of NFT. In 2014, himself and Neil Dash, they were at a hackathon and they created the first NFT, Quantum. We were lucky to have, as I said, Kevin speak, and he spoke about it, and that was back in May, and actually coincidentally a couple of days later, I think like on the 30th of May or whatever, he sold this NFT for 7 million in Christie's. So like, this is the first NFT ever created, and he sold it. So it's an animation, but it, so an NFT, just to break it down a little bit, it's a non-fungible token, and if you know anything about Bitcoin can be broken up into a number of, they can be broken and split in a number of ways, but non-fungible tokens can't be split. Okay, so they can't be split at all. They're like cultural artifacts, so they live on the blockchain. They live on the blockchain forever, and they're like a smart contract. Now, you can ask loads of questions about this and we'll try and answer them. I am not an expert. I would say we're looking at it more in the perspective of the Irish art market and what's happening here, and also for artists, what what opportunities there are in this field, because it's a relatively new kind of area. It renders digital art as a thing of value, okay? And I suppose it's, in a way, it's like playing the stock market. Okay, there's loads of different ways to explain it, but that's kind of an overview of it. There's a lot of Irish artists at the minute that are working in the area. John Gerard with his Western Flag NFT, that was kind of, I think, in March earlier this year. There's David O'Reilly. He's kind of an animator, gamer, game developer. He creates loads of NFTs. There's Kevin Avosh. He's an Irish artist. He actually made big headlines because he sold an NFT for 1 million, and he is actually working on another project, I Am Coin, at the minute, where it's looking at more of the collaborative, or not even, it's like the more kind of where NFT can go. So I'm going to introduce Elle. So Elle is an artist, philosopher, working in performance art, video, sound, digital medium. Our practice focuses on borders and entanglements, particularly in the interplay of corporal and with the machinic. Her artistic practice then is like interesting in exploring hidden histories and emotional experiences. In particular, she likes to probe the gestural relationships to technology and using wearable electronics in her performances. She's most recently she contributed to Digital Arts in Ireland, which is a really interesting text if you want to read it. The series of essays with a number of different artists, Conor McGarrigle being one. And she's recently told me she's working on a project with emergent biometric data that she's collected from her Fitbit over COVID, and now she's trying to figure out, this is the piece of work she's working on currently. Elle is a practicing digital artist, but also lectures in NUIG in Galway, and we're going to have a conversation around the pros and cons of NFT, and also maybe talk about some of the platforms and ways that you can get involved. Also, please put up your hand and ask a question in the middle of it if it's something you don't understand, because I know there may be different kind of levels of what people know about NFT, or you might know more. So it's kind of, we want to have more of a conversation about it, so just put up your hand if you do want to ask about anything.
I'm just going to start by saying that I am not giving financial advice. So if you are interested in getting into NFTs, please do your research and make sure to look up what's out there, because there are various platforms and various areas. And that's one of the big things that's come up with NFTs, is it's not just about producing works and getting them on the blockchain, but it's becoming part of the communities that are around it. So a lot of platforms and groups working with NFTs are also highly involved in Discord. If you're familiar with that, it's kind of a social networking site. Was quite popular with gamers, but there's a lot of communities on there that it's really a place for, let yourself be known. Collectors are there, people working in it, people investing in it, because there is a monetary transaction as part of this. And I guess the question of, what is an NFT? If you've heard Beeple's piece back, I think it was it March that happened? I think it was March.
Yeah, I think around the same time. There was a massive surge of NFT, and it was everybody just heard about it.
And a lot of it had to do with this Christie's auction house sale, where you can't see, but this sold for $63,346,250.
69,316,250. Yeah. Right.
So it's, thinking about auction houses as a significant place where art has value brought to it. Actually, some Picassos were just sold yesterday for millions as well. But this was made record because it was the first digital work to be sold at an auction house. And the question that comes up, well, how do you give a digital work value? There's something about the nature of digital work. It's easily reproducible. Every GIF I see on the screen is exactly like every other GIF someone sees. It's the ability to replicate and reproduce. There really is no original, because it's just the same code being repeated over and over again. And this NFT becomes a way then to add value to digital works through it's financial transactions, but also through a smart contract around it. And it's and that's where it's gotten quite interesting, because over the years they've tried many ways to protect digital works. Thinking about watermarks were really big for a while. Making sure to only upload small scale images to make sure people don't replicate it. You remember some years ago, Apple Music, they used to prevent you, you could download the songs, but you could only play it in iTunes if you owned it. Ways of protecting the copies. Now the big push to streaming is another way to kind of get around the piracy around there. But there's also that aspect of intellectual property. I mean, the ease of putting an image online and having someone else take it, use it, appropriate it, and not giving credit to the creator. So a lot of that has to deal with the nature of digital tech. And when we start talking about blockchain, because blockchain is just a giant ledger. And what it does, has every transaction that was involved in it, and it becomes the kind of single truth ledger around it. And so it lets you track that information. And so that's what got to be quite exciting, especially with people working in digital arts, is you're able to, maintain that authorship there as well.
So if you can imagine, every time your NFT is even sold, again, you sell it off yourself to somebody that buys it on blockchain, every time it's sold, you get value back from that transaction, because it's a ledger. There's a legal, or there's documentation of that transaction every time. Whereas if you, even in the real world, if you sold a painting to a friend or a neighbour or a gallery, they can sell that on even though you're supposed to still get money for it. This is actually a proper ledger of every transaction for your piece of work, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. And it can't be manipulated. It can't be, the way it's built, so just thinking about blockchain, because you might have heard of different kinds of blockchain. There's things like proof of work and proof of stake. And with proof of work, that's what we see with Bitcoin, which was the kind of first blockchain to really bring attention, where you're solving proof of work. The work is mining, and what mining is basically you're solving puzzles, but it's intentionally built to use a huge amount of resources and energy. So not everyone with a computer can mine Bitcoin. So you have to put a financial stake to mine it, which is meant to kind of keep people from forging it. But it's even if you forge something into it, if it can't be validated by anyone else mining, it's not going to pass. And so it's also set up with Bitcoin that only if you control 51% of it, being able to mine 51% of all of it, and no one has the capacities to pay because it uses so much resource. But that's also the problem with the environmental impact.
But I think what's really exciting about NFT is that it opens up for artists to sell their work and create an income, and they don't have to depend commercially on galleries or dealers or curators. They can actually create their own market. Okay, and we'll talk a bit about that as well. I mean, you can create an NFT, a digital artifact of your work, and you can put that up, and you can either sell it at auction or you create the price for it.
If you go to the next slide, because Christie's has done, Christie's known for, traditional art market, but they're also starting with digital markets and with auctions. So this was one, proof of sovereignty, and we start seeing these different exhibitions. Some of the artists in it are like people like Namjoon Paik and Jenny Holzer, who are known for working in different media, video, electronics, projection. Also artists like Tomiko Thale, who has done a lot of work in VR and AR. But it becomes a way to, to sell these works and to, create something that, people collect. And I think that's, even though here it's working with the traditional auction house, there are other ways to do it. So if you go to the next, is anyone familiar with Gary Vee? With VeeFriends? A little bit, yeah. Gary Vee has known for this series of VeeFriends. You see these like little doodles, and just to see the prices there for the tokens. This is one that has become very popular with people who are investing in NFTs, and I think what's interesting about this is it's not just selling the works. There's a whole community around this, like a whole community around Discord. He's starting a conference series, VCon, where people can come. Once you buy one of the NFTs, you buy, with some of them, the original ones, you buy a ticket to VCon, so you can go to the conference and interact with other people and engage with it. And it's really like, in many ways, this goes back to the nature of the technology itself, which is decentralized. I mean, that's what the appeal of blockchain is you don't have, like with Bitcoin, a central bank overseeing it or a nation overseeing a currency, just like you don't have a kind of, like even though Christie's is involved, there's no like overarching art world around it. It's like a different structure. It's decentralized. And it's in the affordances of the technology of how it's built. So,
next slide.
Yeah. And then that's, OpenSea is one of the major platforms. These are on Ethereum, which is the proof of work Bitcoin, or not, proof of work blockchain. And a lot of people would sell, but again, it's different than social media platforms.
Yeah, like, I mean, just to understand the difference, if you put your work up on a social media platform, you don't get any money for that unless you have a massive following and you're doing ads like the Kardashians or something. But it's the companies, it's Facebook, it's they're the people that are making the money from you putting your images up, and you're actually losing some of the, you're not making any profit from that. Whereas NFT allows you to own your own artwork, but also to make money from that, and you have control of it. But it's also, it's a kind of an exploring space. It's new. Like the development that you're going to see over the next 12 months of this, who knows where it can go. There's lots of opportunities. Like, I mean, this is the period of where artists should get excited that, to explore and experiment with this, because it could fail or it could succeed. But that's the role of an artist, to look at this type of area and actually really like deep dive into it. And that's what it's exciting now. We were talking about this in relation to, like, a lot of people have just put up images of their work, and it's been anyone can put up an NFT, but now you're starting to really see the exploration of it, maybe the curation of it, and also people collaborating. I mean, NFT opens up now the opportunities for artists to collaborate. There's a lot of electronic artists, a lot of electronic music artists collaborating. And in digital arts as well, you can see now digital arts really exploring this medium as well. And I mean, Elle can maybe speak a bit more about that.
Yeah. If you go to so this is an NFT kind of NFT gallery feral file, which is if any of you know Casey Reese, he was one of the founders of Processing, which is a open source kind of programming platform. I use it in my own work for generative animations and creative coding, and but what it is this is the platform where they curate exhibitions of NFT works, and it's I think here we start seeing the possibilities of NFTs, because one of the challenges with digital work is it's like, how do you present digital work or curate it? And it's thinking, if you want to get into a gallery, for instance, it's, you have to have the right equipment, you have to have the right ability to show it. And it also starts looking at the kind of browser, the internet browser, as a curatorial space. I think, one thing I noticed when the pandemic first really, we started realizing how big deal the pandemic is and all the spaces are shutting down. There was a transition to, using digital spaces, but in part this involved trying to replicate the gallery space online. So creating kind of 3D space of a gallery. But what if, and with the NFTs, it's starting to think of this is a digital native tech. So it's what about other possibilities there? Not just replicating the gallery space, but other ways of exhibiting art, other ways, again, looking at these affordances of, internet browsers, different sites, and what we can do through there. And in that way, too, I think with NFTs, it's bringing back that kind of excitement of the earlier days of the internet, before the kind of social media platforms really kind of took over content presentation. Because back in the days where you had to know HTML to build your own website and all that stuff, and it's just, you start to think about how you can do things differently there.
And I think it's important to say though that NFT is built for Web 3.0, whereas Instagram is 2.0. Yeah. So it's it's future, it's already future proof in a way. What you're creating for is the next generation of the internet. So I mean, it's looking at where we're going with how we present work. I think it's exactly like what Elle was saying. For artists, that's where we should be looking. This is, again, I'm just reiterating what I said, that this is what artists should be doing, experimenting with this and trying to challenge it and look at the pros, look at the cons of it, and see, find the gaps, critique it, analyze it. Yeah. 100%.
And that's, if we were, even to go back to OpenSea, so I talked a bit about the kind of proof of work with Ethereum, and right now, the challenge with minting or putting NFTs on Ethereum is you also have to pay money to get your work on there. It's what's referred to as gas fees. So it's about, I think, $100 now.
Yeah, it depends
on the day or the time of day.
And also energy prices. So before you auction anything, if you auction, if it doesn't sell, you'll have to pay $120 or $200 or whatever it is. But if you set the limit, it could be 120. Let's say if the gas fees are 120, and then there's also you have to buy your coin, your Ethereum to put it up, and then that's the minimum it'll sell at that price. You set the price of whatever profit you want to make on it. But the gas fees, is something that Ethereum has. So there is other platforms. There's Avosh, Nick and Nook.
If you go to the, So this uses Tezos, which is uses proof of stake of blockchain, which is slightly different. So if Ethereum uses the mining as proof of work, this is also much friendlier to the environment. What is it? John Gerard says it costs about, in terms of energy consumption, as it does to send a tweet, as it does to create something with Tezos. And but it's proof of stake, so it means then you have a kind of financial stake in it, but it's not the same as the mining, which people who mine coin need to put a lot more money in it to use all that energy. But a Tezo right now is about $7. So, and when you mint, it's like, fraction of that. And what I noticed with Hic et Nunc, it reminds me a lot of Tumblr, back when Tumblr was cool. It's a lot more people, you present work because you put less of an investment in, a lot of people sharing work, emphasis on swapping. You see a lot of that kind of community experimentation. I mean, once you have a wallet, a digital wallet with Tezos, you can mint. So it's like you're able to get up there, and it's a nice way to get an idea of the process and how it works. And again, it's like you get involved with the platform, but then also getting on the Discord channel and talking with other people who are, were active in the area, presenting the work on Twitter. There's also, so it's like, it's not just going up and presenting work, it's becoming involved in these communities around it. And, building up your reputation as an artist, as a maker, and gaining that interest in it. I know with like OpenSea, there is people who are collecting NFTs are very interested in your roadmap, very interested in your vision for a project, and will start investing in it if they feel like it will build up. Because here's the risk, is it's unregulated. So it's, especially when you start, investing thousands in it, that could be gone in a flash. And, you could have something that's worth something one day and then worth nothing the next. And I guess another risk also is scams are possible. People who can link up to your wallet. So people who are really interested in collecting NFTs will get what's called cold storage wallets, which they use offline to store their ether offline. It's it can be quite...
if you don't have it backed up,
as
one of my family members learned, you can lose it. You can lose any investment you have. There's so many kind of nuances in it. But again, it's a risk. It's like anything. It's a risk if you want to experiment with it. But as an artist, you can experiment. It's like everything. You can find a way in to experiment with it that's not going to cost you a load of money. But you can because it's $7. But then you have to build your community, I think, which is really interesting with Discord. Like David O'Reilly, he's a huge following on Discord, and he has sold a number of NFTs, and he has a lot of games up on. He's very interesting, I think, as an Irish artist. He's a gamer, animator, a bit of everything, but he hasn't gone through the traditional route of art college in Ireland, and he has built a community and sold a number of NFTs, and he has a number of games up on PlayStation as well. So he's kind of he's commercial, but he's also artist, and I think that's one of the other areas that NFT lets you open to be, that you can be commercial, also you can be traditional, you can be practicing artist. But I think with Discord, having to build your community, and the fact that you're not allowed to sell on this platform without actually having that community built around you is something interesting with this as well, because then you don't just go straight up and put it up an NFT. You actually have to really look at it and see how it can frame your practice online. As a digital artist, I think that's a really interesting route.
And I think here it's you're really thinking, because the NFT, the art, becomes the currency, which is in some way, like, I know, like, the Marxist in me is like, ew, icky, but it's also like, that's what we're doing anyway as artists. Like, when you put something up on social media, it's like the social media platform is making a profit off your work, and you're not seeing any of that. They're using your free labor to contribute to it. And you also lose the rights to it once you sign those terms and conditions. It's up there, and you maintain it here on NFT platforms. And there are people who are finding ways. So, like, curatorial groups forming that will pay for gas fees. So artists that are underrepresented in typical gallery contexts are now given opportunities to present through NFTs, and again, able to make money off their work. Artists can also stipulate how payments are split out. So, like, one artist She has it, I forget her name, but she has it in it so that a chunk of payments every time an NFT is sold will go to the gallery, but she stipulates how it goes to every worker in the gallery and not just the gallery owner, and everyone gets a certain percent, and that goes into the contract. So it's like it's a contract and it's a currency. So it's really rethinking value when it comes in relation to work. And in some ways, it is making explicit. So like, if you go online and you do a search on like what are NFTs, like you can see the sources that are directed at investors, because they'll just talk about the financial sides of things and not think about the art side at all. Like there's a great description on like the MIT website, but it's like there's no talk about art at all. It's just like, oh, this is how it works, and it's like, hey, you make money. It's like, wait, but where's the art? But that's also, it's like, once you start becoming familiar with how it works, it becomes a space to play there as an artist, because it hasn't been, it's not been kind of set down yet. It's still very flexible in what people can do.
Yeah, and it's wide open for collaboration and opportunity. So that's why it's an exciting space. Like, I know we've mentioned John Gerard because he's so passionate about it. But he says it's a new horizon for public art, especially for creators. So that's why it's really exciting time to be a practicing artist if this is an area that you're interested in, because it opens a lot of opportunity and a lot of younger artists coming up have made a significant amount of money from their practice on it, and there's a lot of Irish artists. There's graffiti artist, his name's Ashes. He has sold a piece of work there, I think just under 20 grand he made. So I mean, for someone who's just come out of college, and it's a graffiti piece that he's digitized, so it's really kind of interesting to see that. We might ask, I think we've kind of come to the end there, and we might just go to some questions if people have questions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just there you mentioned public art. So I'm confused as to how, if it's an investor buying an art and it's digitalized and it's non-fungible or whatever, how does then that become public? Like, how does that get to the public then?
That's the funny thing with NFTs. It doesn't prevent the circulation of it. And actually having increased circulation brings more value to it. So you see like some memes have... and also the Leave Britney Alone video had also been sold as an NFT. And it's
just recently.
Yeah. It's more like a patronage system. It's like you're investing in the artist. It's like, you start investing in the artist, so then you get a cut. And as they become more famous, the investor then makes more money off of that. So it's a funny thing where there's a quality of scarcity in who could own it, but then like some things do stipulate, like I think in Feral File they say, okay, this stays in your digital gallery, but there's others where it like those memes, we can still remix the memes, we can still engage with it. So it's a way of putting things in the public, but then keeping track of who made it, and it's able then, the money doesn't go to the social media platforms, but then to the creators. Yeah. And
also like, exactly what you're talking about there, that's something that's being really teased out at the minute in that space. I mean, that artist, Kevin Avosh, I think his surname is, the Irish artist, he is work that I Am Coin. He's actually made, I think, like 100,000, he's attached his blood to the piece. Look it up, it's really interesting. So like, the website's called I Am Coin, I think.
I Am a Coin?
I Am a Coin,
yep.
Yeah. So, I mean, even how artists are trying to kind of figure out that, and maybe like that every time you look at the work it's different, like it's totally been explored. But yeah, just have a look at that as well. But as I said, it's so new. I mean, it's been around since 2014, but it's only since 2018 to now that it's really exploded. And then I suppose with the way Bitcoin has fluctuated in the last few months, like it's come back up now to its value. It's predicted to come to 100,000 before the end of 2021. But NFT has kind of just jumped up on its own in parallel to that. So I think, any other questions?
Yeah, just on getting it displayed there, as we know, there's a lot of quite immersive digital art centres and galleries are popping up around the world. Would it ever come to the stage, you think, that they'll be showing collections of NFTs, because they've already got the 4K walls and stuff, and a kind of hybrid traditional art gallery and just NFT pieces might be another way of getting to the public, you know? Because I wouldn't even think of going on these NFT sites to look at art, you know?
Yeah, I suppose. Well, I mean, with Christie's, they did in May. They did the public auction of a number of artists' works, and it was curated. But there's no I mean, I don't know any galleries that are yet doing a full that you can go to. But I think.
Of course, you could show in 10 galleries at the same time.
Yeah, you could. Yeah, I mean, it's very much experimental. I mean, you can't, or you can. I mean, you have to. There's a number of ways you can put it up online. I mean, you can go through Coinbase to do it, or you can go through these different platforms. There's how many different platforms? There's so many.
There's loads. Do your research.
There's Niftygate as well.
There's also Foundation is another one. Some are more strict than others. Some are more like Hickanook. You can just post your own work, but ones like Farophile, you need to be invited.
Niftygate, I think, is more along the lines of what you're describing. I think maybe. I think so.
Well, I know Tomiko Thale, the piece she auctioned off at Christie's. I believe it was an augmented reality piece. That she ended up auctioning off. So there is that, because really you can make anything. Like the thing with Ethereum, and it was also in the tech of Ethereum, is you could put anything on Ethereum. There's people who even have their prenup on Ethereum. It's you can have PDF, songs, movies. It's really open.
Actually, one of the things that we didn't really touch on is a lot of the most successful NFTs are the ones with the story behind them. The crazier the story, the more popular and the higher value the NFT gets. So the bigger the backstory and the surrounding elements or the context you can place around it, the probably more successful the NFT will be. So if you look at even the CryptoPunks, they're massive. I don't know if you've seen any of those. They're kind of in a way.
Let's just do some live.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I'll just tether my phone there. I can probably go on to some sites there.
No, because people get really into it. It's this notion of collecting, and people it's not just investing money, but it's really thinking about why people buy art in the first place. It's you could invest in stock, or you could buy artworks. There's something there, and also a lot of the early memes. What was it? The neon cat was one that sold. I think that was the first meme to sell as an NFT. They're talking about neon cats become the unofficial mascot of Ethereum. Yeah, I remember.
So if you're playing that now on Google, just you doing that, will the person, is that an NFT or is that, so it's not, I'm just a bit confused.
Yeah.
So is that, does the artist now, because we're looking at this, get a little bit of money? Or is this I'm really confused. I'm just wondering about how it works.
So if you can imagine, the Mona Lisa is in. Oh no, actually, I'll give you a better one. So you have an art dealer who's going to bid on a painting that's part of a collection in the gallery. So they bid on it and it sells for 2 million. They're not going to hang that picture in their sitting room, right? They've invested in it. They're not going to hang it in their sitting room. So they never actually get to physically have it in their sitting room, but they still invest in it, and then it can be sold on or they resell it on, and that's kind of how an NFT works. So we can have a picture of that piece of artwork that they've bought online, and you can see the image of it, but they actually own the contract for it, but they're still not going to hang it in their sitting room. Does that make sense? Is that a better way of explaining it?
Yeah. No, it is a weird thing because it seems contradictory. in it.
That's it. So
Yeah.
Like a thing in your head where you're like, I'm not like.
But if you try and do the real life version of it, it's maybe a bit easier to understand it.
Does that mean so that, say, potential investors, are they looking for, like sellable art for the future? When they're looking at NFTs, they're looking at how valuable can that image be for the community, for the world in 10 years' time?
Yes.
So it's okay. So it's kind of like how commercial can this abstract or potential art piece be now, and bring it into mainstream?
Yeah.
Like digital is still kind of, the language around digital art is like relatively new. Like, I mean, digital is a word that's used for everything. It's used for all the platforms that we use, the photography, the camera work, everything we do. It's used as a term for everything. But like digital art itself, like from a painting and everything else, the value that's being put on that now, that's kind of, it has to be done within that realm, if you know what I mean. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah. But I suppose, you see, again, the traditional artist could have a huge issue with that, of like being the artist, and they're creating a piece that they don't want to be commercial. It's their piece, and that's what you're talking about, I suppose, with the possibilities of just, it's another avenue, I suppose, that's being opened up to people who are, that want to earn money rather than create art, I suppose.
Yeah. And again, if you're a traditional artist, that's a decision you have to go, do I really need to engage with digital technology as part of the process in creating my work? And the language around what we do here as well is like, you can, like a data artist actually uses digital technology in both the material part of creating their work and the output, if that makes sense. Whereas you might just use digital technology in the creation of the work, but it could be made in a physical world, the physical sense, if you know what I mean. I mean, there's a lot of work to be done around the language that we use with digital, but that's also why it's still new, even though it's been around for years, but it's still new in how we work with it. And that's why it's still very much experimentation. But artists still experiment with traditional forms as well, so I mean, you kind of have to look at it from both sides of it, if you know what I mean. If that makes sense.
I mean, I think like one of the reasons I work in digital is it's because I could have started as a photographer, performance artist, and I like the digital because it has that kind of ethereal quality to it, but it's really difficult to make a living as a digital artist, which is why I got into teaching. So it's thinking about, it really, that's why I think about this system, is it really brings to bear the kind of financial side of being an artist, which is, I know for me personally, it's a tough thing for me to grapple with. But it's the reality of it. It's like, like here in Ireland, you can apply for funding from the Arts Council, but to do that, you have to make a plan, you have to show what you can do, you then get the money, and even that, it's not even certain you'll do it as you're filling out the application. And in a way, with the NFT, you're doing something similar. You're going into Discord, you're saying, hey, this is my plan, this is my roadmap, here's my work, and people start investing in you, much like if you're applying to an Arts Council or getting someone to be your patron.
For me, I won't say it's similar, but it's like creating a community in Instagram.
Yeah.
You kind of have to create that community in order to sell the piece, or for an investor to see potential. Okay, there's a gathering here, there's a following, right? I'm going to take a chance. So it's playing the different lanes.
And the difference there is Instagram's making the money off your work, because they turn it, they use the likes to collect the data to do the targeted advertising. And so that's also the difference. So even though, yes, it's free to post on Instagram, the companies are making money off us. That's the platform model, is like YouTube, all that, make money off the content that's presented. This becomes a way that you own the content, or you continue to have a financial stake in the content. So that is the big difference.
The ledger provides you with that, you know what I mean? So, and your images can be copied off Instagram. Like, I mean, this can be copied here as well, but I mean, you have more protection of your images because of that ledger on the blockchain.
Yeah. So, would you recommend, like, say, if you're making stuff on, say, YouTube and Instagram, make NFTs, and can you then put them on Instagram and YouTube? Like, do the NFT thing first, and then Instagram, YouTube, or should we just scrap YouTube and Instagram?
There's issues. Some of the issues that come up is the limit, the file limit. That's also a problem. So Hick and Nook is 100 megabyte file limit. So I know even some GIFs I make that are too big. And so videos definitely eat up a lot of memory there. But I know a lot of people will post, for instance, on Hick and Nook and then post it on Twitter and then link to the Hick and Nook site and, and actually engage with people on Twitter, being like, hey, this is dropping now, because you can also burn copies. You could mint, 100 copies and then burn or get rid of 50 later, and so change the number of that are available for sale.
I think it's also just for your answer to your question. It's just important to look at the platforms and what you're using the platform for. So, like, let's say a lot of artists were using Instagram during COVID as a gallery space, and then they would do like they engaged and built their audience, and then they would do these like pre-sales. But the only way you could do the sale was if you had signed up to their newsletter. You would get a code, and then you're directing them off Instagram onto your website. And then I've seen loads of printmakers, especially, had massive sales of their artwork. And I was like, I think it's Laura Wade, one of them, and like she did her edition of prints. Or her studio work, her extra prints from years, and she sold loads of stuff. It made what I could see like a load of money, but she's directing them back to her website. So if you kind of look at the platform and what you're using for it, same way with YouTube. Like, if you're posting video content there, know what YouTube is for, know what you're gaining from the platform, and maybe if it's video content, you might be better showing the video content on Vimeo, because Vimeo is you have the rights for your work if you host it on Vimeo, but you have to pay. You can only host a certain amount before you have to pay a fee on Vimeo. But then you can have subscription. People can charge. You can charge people to look at your content on Vimeo. And again, YouTube. Then the difference between Vimeo and YouTube is it's a kind of pros and cons. It's a wider audience. It's more accessible. People go to YouTube before they go to Vimeo. But then the quality of the content you put up on Vimeo is a lot better. It's cleaner. The platform is able to take higher res files. So like, even the guys that are recording here, they'll probably put their content up on Vimeo because they know it's a better platform. So it's really just knowing what you want from the platform, but then I would say experiment with NFT, and then you will see yourself, what to do with it. And I would definitely recommend, like, Discord and all of these are open source. The communities, you can ask any question and you come back with the information straight away. Like, this is what's so generous about these environments, these platforms. They're so supportive, and when you build your own, like Una Min, she's on our Future is Bright series. She does a whole piece on Discord, and she's like, it's really interesting the way she talks about it. She does a bit of a live. She goes into her own Discord community, and she talks about it amazingly. But I think just really do look at your own practice and see. It's just maybe like an analysis of like, what do I want to do? Where do I want to take it? And it's like you're doing like a 5-year plan for your practice in a way. You're becoming a business entrepreneur for your practice.
But you have to do that anyway as artists. I mean, you have to. It's decide, and it's really this is an area you decide to go in. It's like the difference between as a digital artist, I can try to get in some gallery spaces and face a lot of closed doors because they don't know how to show the work or they don't know what to do with it. Or I could take that energy and try to set up through this way, which is more familiar with setting up kind of digital work and that connection to an international audience, which is another thing I find quite appealing. Is you get that kind of space of flows of the internet, and but that's really it's the work the work we do as artists when we're not in the studio, where it is, how do you get your work out there? How do you get, you know, people to see it? How do you get people interested in it? And it's, you know, it's a way to do it, and a lot of it is the same stuff, like writing your artist statements, you know, describing your pieces, presenting the stories around it, getting people interested. But instead of going up to like curators and galleries or gallerists, or applying for Arts Council applications, which are a lot of work, it's a way to do it. It's a different means of doing it.
Sorry, just wondering if kind of any existing NFT successful artists out there are kind of, I suppose, hiring like that social media marketing person who does the community stuff, who builds the community. Like, is it a case of that one person does it all, or is it a case now where they're getting very big and they got to focus on other stuff and they're letting another person deal with the building of the community?
Hey, offhand, I don't know if there is. Like, I mean, I'm sure there is. Like, I mean, I think you find a lot of artists who work in the space, they actually enjoy engaging with their community. Probably more so, and it's part of the creative process for them. I think in like, if I'm going for the real world example, let's say Damien Hirst, he writes out, he sits down with his team and says, "This is my idea." This is, and then it's a factory, and they churn out the work, and he just signs his name on the bottom of it. But I mean, like, I would say they probably do, but I just don't know any offhand. But there is a whole marketing element about putting your work online, and again, it is a decision that you have to make. You can hire people to do it. You can work with, like, I know when we do a project with CultureWorks, we always work with someone with digital comms, and they build a whole project analysis and messaging around the project that we're doing. But sometimes we don't have the budget to do that. You know, it depends on the project. Like, that's the ideal scenario where you actually have a budget to pay someone to do that, and they work with you to do that.
One question, just get the ownership side. So let's say Elle creates a piece of digital art, so a JPEG just for simplicity, and I buy it. Alright, so now it's as an NFT, it's in my digital wallet, and the ledger, which is what basically millions of servers and computers and whatever around the world, know I have it now. And even if you could cheat 1 million of those ledgers, the other 100 million ledgers know I have it. So it's like it's kind of very secure. And I can make multiple JPEGs of it and just share them with everybody in this room. But if I sell that to Dara, then it's now in his digital wallet and he has the original. So it's a bit like the Mona Lisa in the Louvre is the original, and you can have many prints of the Mona Lisa, but everybody knows it's in the Louvre, and the blockchain knows Dara has the original JPEG.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much the way it works.
When you sell it to him, Elle gets a cut.
Yep.
That's the difference.
That's the other, yeah.
You see, that's the difference. Anytime you sell it on, she will get a cut of that transaction.
Yeah, and that's the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you have the provenance there because it's the single truth of the blockchain, and that's the thing. It's a distributed, especially Ethereum. If you go onto the website for Ethereum, they have a lot of resources to explain how it works, because it is a different way of thinking about a network because it's decentralized. So it's like it's a kind of a decentralized computer system with one single truth. If one way to explain it, if you think we create loads of data, so there's loads of databases out there with all the information, but they could have different interpretations of us. Like the health service has our info in one database, you know, a school could have a different info about us. The social media networks have different databases. With blockchain, it's one single giant database, that single truth that's being processed, and so it's like you could try to trick it. But if it can't be validated by everybody else connected to it, then it just that fork will disappear.
Just one question there, it kind of goes to your question as well. Is like, how good a quality does an NFT have to be? Like it's whatever is minted. It can be like the crypto ones, really pixelated, or it can be high res. Because I know Beeble does stuff 4,000 by 8,000 px, and he sells like the 3D file and everything. But it can be whatever is minted, that's what's recognised. So like the cat as well. Like if you downloaded the cat, like would you be able to, I suppose like it'd be recognised, but I was going to ask as well, like say some meme that hasn't been NFT'd yet, if you downloaded the GIF and tried to mint it, is that possible?
That I saw that. Okay. And are you familiar with Anna Voog? Yeah, she was one of the cam girls in the 1990s. Are you familiar with Jenny Cam? Okay, Jenny Cam was known for setting up the first person to be recognized to set up a live stream webcam. And what it was is, and it was, she streamed her whole life. But this time streaming, we're talking modems. So we're talking one still image every few minutes. And the reason I mentioned Anna Voog is she was the kind of first person to make it an art form, where she did it for like 12 years, where she streamed her life on the computer. And she's been minting these images as NFTs, because she has this whole archive of all these webcam photos that are now being minted. But she noticed that some people have been minting her images and not crediting her. So it's, again, there is that risk there where...
it's with anything though, you will find a loophole if you dig down deep enough. Like, and I mean, but it's also quite kind of hard to do that too. Like, I mean, if you can search for your own images, and like, I mean, you can trace it back. You know, if you're looking for it, you will be able to kind of catch that person out on that NFT, and then they won't be validated because they can get them knocked off the ledger. Do you know what I mean? So, you know, it is kind of... You could kind of say this is my original work, and this guy's forging it. Because she has the evidence to prove it. Okay. But do you know what I mean? So, I mean, there is that loophole, but then if she finds that, she has the evidence, and then that knocks them off. There was just you had a question down the back, did you? Or?
Oh, I did. Sorry, it was kind of relating to a little bit earlier, but it was, you know, the original artist obviously is the one that gets sort of a cut every time that's passed along. Does everybody in that chain continue to get a cut each time? Okay. Yeah.
If you have it built into the contract.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Like, I mean, as like Elle said earlier, you could have the person that was cleaning my studio when I was creating the work. They could get a cut of the contract.
Every time.
Like, the future of how we do contracts for any job is basically on the blockchain, really, if you think about it. And people are bidding for jobs on that as well. You had a question there, sorry.
Yeah, I was just thinking, how would it work then if you're saying that it's like decentralized and non-regulated? So if you see someone who, like, you just have a JPEG and they've like downloaded your JPEG, so it's like the same quality file or whatever, and then they mint that, how are you meant to, like, what's the process in that if it is deregulated?
Sorry for jumping in there. No, that's where the reputation thing comes in and why you build up the community. Because it's like, if you're saying like, those person's selling my work and it's my work, people won't buy it. And it's like, it comes into that reputation with it. And it's kind of like, the whole thing is built on the idea is, how do you build trust between people that you can't trust? It's really the whole idea of blockchain. And it's if someone is, and that's what Anna Voog did. It was like, she went out on social media, be like, this person is selling pieces that these are my original images, and and that gets spread and known. And so it is that aspect of it, because that's the thing. The work sells more when you mint more, when you make more, and you have the bigger projects. They call They call it a rug. Okay, because there's a lot of hype around it. It's this kind of digital tech. There's a lot of hype around it. It's really easy to go in and say, hey, I got this project coming up. But if that then doesn't materialize as you promise, they call it a rug pull, and everyone who's invested in it will lose the money. So again, people aren't just buying and collecting. They see this as an investment, and if that kind of falsity to it means that it won't have value. It's really it's kind of based on the idea that we can only trust people we financially transact with.
And it is like playing the stock market. Yeah. And I mean, like, how many of us play the stock market? I don't. Mm-hmm. But like, I mean, NFT is a way that you can, do that. But again, just kind of do it at, like, go in with small, like the TVOS and do like a $7 or if you want to, like, there's cryptocurrencies you can buy for €3. You know what I mean? And then, you know, but again, it's the reselling of them that brings the value, but also the story around it, you know. So like a lot of people in the early days have cryptocurrencies that they're selling now for a ton of money that they would have bought or for nothing, you know. So again, yeah, it's about the story around it.
The risk of the fraud on the artwork is on the buyer or the investor rather than the artist.
Mm-hmm.
Because so the artist shouldn't be worried about losing money in that scenario because they're losing the opportunity to sell. But the real loser of that scenario is the person who bought the fraudulent one under the wrong web address or the wrong transaction code. So the artist themselves isn't such an issue. It's the opportunity that could be lost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like there is. This is why I said pros and cons at the start, because there is a lot of pros and cons. But like one of the cons could be that you purchased an NFT 10 years ago, or not even, like you purchased one in 2014, and it was via a web link, and someone forgot to repurchase that domain, so that web link doesn't exist anymore. You know what I mean? That could happen. You know, like I don't know anyone that has happened to, but that could happen. That's a scenario that could happen.
And they can get, because there's also not regular, like Hick and Nunk got hacked this summer, and that's something that is like a worry, is there's nothing regulating this. So if it gets hacked, it's like what happens? And there was a period of time where both artists and collectors didn't know what happened to the value of the works they had up there. There's loads of scams out there as well, like people posing as collectors, and then end up getting, you end up selling them something and you don't end up getting the payment back, or it's so that's why it's and it kind of, in that way, it's that kind of libertarian quality that we see in internet culture, where it is very much coming out of Silicon Valley, where there's high rewards possible, but there's also a lot of risk, and you're really expected to kind of take care of yourself in there, which can be a bit intimidating, but And
it's not also been fully critiqued, like you have any kind of exhibition or any kind of artwork, it gets that criticism, or it's looked at like that. So I mean, that's only starting to happen now. I'm only starting literally in the last few weeks, and I mean, I read one article, I think there in the last week, said this is just a plaything that people are just experimenting with at the minute, it'll be gone. And then other people are just, this is the future of how we sell artwork, that's outside the gallery system, and I mean it's so new and so changeable. Like in a few weeks there'll be something else with it. That's why it's quite exciting space to kind of, as an artist, if you want to experiment with, I think, definitely.
And just to come on that, there's a couple. If you go in, are you familiar with Hyperallergic, the kind of online arts? It's like an online blog, art magazine. They do a lot of art criticism. They did a number of podcasts over the summer about NFTs, but that question comes up: was what happens to art criticism and art writers in this context? It's
you have a link for it on your site, do you?
No.
Oh, I thought you did.
No. It's hyperallergic, and they talk about some people, and they did actually do a couple articles about NFTs, and it bringing attention to artists that typically get marginalized from gallery streams. I mean, there's also the fact that you can be an artist and your real name is not even known, and you're just known by your handle online.
So if you wanted to be, have a pseudonym, an NFT is a perfect way to do that too. Mm-hmm. So.
I have a question. Let's say for a traditional artist who's doing, just landscape or seascape, even some still life or whatever, is there a role on the NFT side for that type of artwork?
I think with with that, you're also thinking about how their function, you're thinking of blockchain as a kind of smart contract. So also finding ways, I know there's been instances where even if it's a physical work of art, you could have a QR code affiliated with it. You can affiliate with NFTs like real world actions or transactions, like some NBA players form it where you buy an NFT and you get access to the players club on the night of the game. So it's not just a digital work, it's also a token that can give you some kind of access away from keyboard there. And like some of the Gary V's tokens, they get access to a conference. That's, again, with the NFT and with the Ethereum blockchain especially, is it's much more open in what you can do with it. So it could be finding ways to connect on the blockchain back to the kind of physical artwork.
Yeah, and I mean, it could be, it's just like think about again, that piece of work, what you want, what's the output that you want for it to be digitally? Is it a dissemination? Is it to put it onto a platform? Or is it to reinterpret it into a digital work? Or do you want to collaborate with someone, another artist or something, or it might be a programmer or something? You kind of just have to look at what really would you like as the output of it to be, and is it beneficial for you to do it as well? Again, I keep coming back to this because I think artists really need to ask themselves these questions when they're looking at their own practice and what they want, and also like, would you have an audience for that? I think that's really important to think about as well. And who are your audience, and who do you want your audience to be as well?
I mean, even the Gary V tokens, those started as physical drawings that actually just sold at Christie's not too long ago, that he then turned into digital images, and he's really built like really an enterprise.
Yeah, like I mean, it could be the sketches for that painting that you are turning into an NFT in a way as well.
So it's kind of like a patronage system, is the way it's also explained. So it's not just buying work, but people investing in an artist because they want that artist to succeed, because if that artist succeeds, they make money. But I mean, you think back to the Medici family. It's this long history of patronage for artists.
Yeah. Any other questions? That's great. I didn't think we'd get an hour and nearly an hour and 10 minutes talking about NFTs. It's great. It's really good. Yeah. Thanks very much for your time, everyone.